Hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm so excited to talk to you about this today. And this, in my opinion, is what the Olympics are all about. It was sad that a lot of our conversations early on in the Olympics were the low ratings, and they were a lot of athletes and their political activism on the field and just how polarizing that is. And unfortunately, it's turned a lot of people off to the Olympics. Well, this story and this win today sort of reminds me why I love the Olympics so much. And it's that story of triumph and courage and all of those things that we are usually used to seeing and used to celebrating when it comes time for the Olympics. So we're going to talk about Suni Lee and her win yesterday. She won the all-around competition in gymnastics. She's on Team USA, and this is, let's see, an American woman has won every Olympic all-around since 2004. I did not know that, and she just took it away again. So here she is, and this is interesting because this is one of the competitions that Simone Biles pulled out of. Now, of course, we don't know if Simone Biles was still in that competition. Would Simone have won, or would Suni won? Obviously, we don't know, but it definitely gave Suni a better chance. I think that's a good argument to make to win this competition. And Suni has sort of been in Simone's shadow for a lot of her career. But anyway, before we get to that, let's backtrack a little bit. So everyone had been talking about Simone withdrawing from a few competitions. By the way, she is still, I believe, eligible to compete in a few competitions next week, but they're going to keep evaluating her. So we don't know if she'll be competing at all. But this is definitely one of the ones that she withdrew from. And when she announced that she was withdrawing, a lot of people had really passionate opinions about that. You had Charlie Kirk, what did he say? She's a shame to the country. You had other people just fawning over her and saying that was so brave. It was so incredibly brave. I was somewhere in the middle. I personally, maybe this isn't a popular opinion, but I thought it was pretty smart. So she was expected to do a few moves in the Olympics that people don't even try. So she was going to execute some incredible things. And the type of sport she does and the type of things that she was going to be executing are things that if you make the slightest wrong move, you could potentially injure yourself, possibly kill yourself. You could break your neck. You could do a lot of really awful things to yourself. And she came out with a very disappointing start, made a mistake that typically someone like Simone wouldn't make, especially in a competition this big. After that, she said she was going to withdraw from a few things because of her mental health. She said she wasn't in the right headspace for many different reasons. And I think her wording of it might have rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, I feel. But in my opinion, if you know that you're not in the right headspace, if you know it's going to be really hard for you to get out and you're performing that kind of dangerous performance, it's probably better to sit that one out. Yes, Simone was there in the audience cheering on her team members, which I think was a cool thing to do. And also, I didn't realize that after Simone Biles, when she pulled out, the greatest gymnast of all time, people say, Lee became the highest qualifying U.S. gymnast in the all-around final. So where Simone was the highest qualifier, she was now the highest qualified to be set up to win this competition. So she wasn't the one that replaced Simone, but she was the second highest under her, which gave her an even bigger advantage to being able to take away the gold. Could argue that her sitting out gave this incredible athlete an opportunity to win a gold medal. So Suni Lee, I actually learned a lot about her today after reading about her win, and I think she has a pretty cool story, so I'd like to share that. One of my favorite parts of her story is her dad, who describes himself as being her biggest fan. Noticed she had a knack for gymnastics when she was really younger, yet couldn't afford to get her the proper equipment to practice on or train on. So he fashioned a balance beam out of a piece of plywood and a mattress and put it in their backyard so she could use that to practice. And apparently it's still in the backyard today. But for Suni, one of the craziest things, or most admirable things, I should say, about her story are a lot of the struggles that she had the past few years. She lost her aunt and uncle, whom she was close with, to COVID-19, so she was mourning the loss of them. She broke her foot and was trying to recover from that. And if you're trying to qualify for the Olympics and have a broken foot, that's a pretty awful thing to be going through and stressful at the time, I'm sure. Not only that, but her dad, again, who, remember, I believe she said she is closer with him than anyone. He fell off a ladder helping a friend 2 days before her national championship. She still went and competed, but he is now paralyzed basically from here down. And that's been the last few years of her life on top of the pandemic and everything like that. I'll show you a little bit of footage where they are talking about that.
So unusual, he'd be absent last month.
See how she does that?
From the U.S. Nationals that put Suni second on the podium.
Unbelievable.
Behind four-time Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles.
Teenager, 16-year-old from St. Paul, Minnesota.
For nothing could have kept her dad
Look at this combo, though.
from the performance
And here's the connection.
of Suni's life until something did.
The last time I remember is I woke up in the hospital.
2 days before Suni left for nationals, her dad was on a ladder helping a friend cut a tree limb when he fell.
According to the doctor, I'm pretty much paralyzed from here down.
John Lee, Navy veteran, has spent the past 6 weeks in the Spinal Cord Injury Center at
Another interesting thing about Suni is that she is a member of the Hmong population, which is an ethnic group from Southeast Asia and certain parts of China that actually fought alongside USA in the Vietnam War. During that war, most of the Hmong community lost their land, so they all resettled in Thailand as refugees. And by the late 70s and 80s, most of those refugees in Thailand came and resettled in the U.S., most of that population being centralized in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is where Suni is from. I'm going to read you something else interesting that her family and other Hmong Americans went through the past few years, especially with some of our high-profile cases like George Floyd. And again, this is something I had no idea about until I was doing some research on Suni. And this is from a sort of a background piece that Elle did about her. So I'm just going to read you 2 paragraphs from that. It says, now Lee, Suni Lee, whose parents immigrated from Laos, is also fighting to qualify as the first ever Hmong American Olympic gymnast, all while her community contends with a national surge in anti-Asian violence. People hate us for no reason, Lee says from her parents' house in St. Paul, Minnesota. It would be cool to show that we are more than what they say. I don't know how to explain that. Kelly Chauvin, the now ex-wife of Derek Chauvin, the officer who murdered George Floyd, is Hmong American. So is one of the other officers that was on the scene, who is set to stand trial in August on charges of aiding and abetting in second-degree murder and aiding and abetting in second-degree manslaughter in connection with Floyd's murder. As a part of the ensuing protests, several nearby Hmong American businesses were vandalized. John said it got scary when several homes on their block were broken into. I was trying to make the Hmong community more known, Lee says. When that happened, it felt like it was a big setback. So I had no idea that Chauvin's wife was a Hmong American. I also had no idea that one of the other officers was. And I had no idea that this was a population that was sort of scrutinized and under attack a little bit in the wake of this. Going back to Simone withdrawing from the competition, you know, a lot of people were saying they were really brave, and that she was really brave. A lot of people supported her. A lot of people were just like me, you know, you do what you got to do. But there was a lot of criticism. But my opinion is, you know, if Simone would not have withdrawn from this competition, there's a high possibility that we might not know who Suni Lee is. I wouldn't have known who Suni Lee is, and I'm glad I do. And this, in my opinion, just her entire story, coming from nothing, having a family, working together and supporting each other, going through hard times and coming out on top and triumphant, and keeping your sort of eye on the prize and never giving up, is the American dream and is what the Olympics are all about. So I'm very excited to share that with you. Sorry if I'm a little cheesy, but I like a good story. And let me know what you guys think about everything. Have a really good day. Goodbye.